Where does one even begin with this topic? How about this? I loved scaring the absolute shit out of myself as a kid. I would constantly put myself in situations where I had to confront my fears. Watching horror movies and scary YouTube videos late at night, playing horror games, and listening to creepypastas in bed. I would always try and get other people to join me like my cousins and friends, but I would always be the bigger pussy, hiding my face and cowering away from the screen. Honestly, I have no idea why I did this to myself. But the kind of horror that really stuck with me was the tangible, the ones that aren't explicitly fiction and may hold some truth to them. Enter cryptids. I assume they need no introduction. Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, El Chupacabra, frog people? Rods? Okay, hold on. This is literally just bugs being captured on a shitty camera. This was my autistic hyperfixation in my early elementary and middle school life. Fuck, I even remember doing a presentation on skunk ape to my class. I got some weird fucking looks from people. Needless to say, a lot of these creatures are kind of fucking bullshit. I mean, Bigfoot, dude in a suit, Nessie, driftwood, Mothman, barn owl. But some actually ended up being true. The Komodo dragon was once considered a cryptid until someone killed one and brought it back to America. The kraken? Yeah, giant squid. Likely didn't swallow up ships, but it's kind of real. Sea serpents? Oarfish. Florida crackhead? One tried to bite my face off. The topic of cryptids is actually a lot more contentious than you may think it is. I don't blame you. It's hard to take things seriously when they're standing right next to the Ohio frogman. I get it. But hear me out. It was an early October morning in 2014. I was standing outside in the pitch dark, only being illuminated by the starry night above. Fighting the inner zoomer in me, I looked away from my phone and just looked up. I was in a dark place mentally at the time. Puberty, insecurities, trauma, stress. I felt so alone, much like the stars looming above. While it looked like they were close, in reality, they had light years between them. I think that fact made me feel empathetic in a weirdly abstract way. It was in that moment I saw something moving across the sky. It was a dot, too small to really make out what it was. I thought it was a comet, but it had no tail. Before I could even venture another guess, it slowed slightly and made a 90-degree turn to the other direction. It happened so fast, it felt so unreal. For a solid minute, I was just asking myself, did I really just see that? Maybe I blinked and I missed it and there was another object crossing paths, but how likely was that? Before I could even finish that thought, the bus arrived. I thought about what I had seen for the rest of the day. I just couldn't venture a logical guess. It was so anomalous. I was looking online about similar sightings and only found UFO sightings and insinuations that it was aliens. Even to 13-year-old me, that sounded ridiculous. I was well aware of the UFO phenomenon. I just assumed it was like the other cryptids and that there existed a logical explanation. But I could never find an answer that made any sense. So I just slept on it, pushing it into the recesses of my mind. Nevertheless, I found the idea of extraterrestrials interesting, thinking of what-if scenarios, how we would eventually make first contact, but in the end, it was just fiction, daydreaming for fun.
These are unidentified aerial phenomena.
Whoa, it's getting close.
Videos recorded by U.S. Navy personnel have added a new layer of evidence to the current national debate about UFOs.
The Pentagon has confirmed the authenticity of the newly leaked video.
Newly leaked video allegedly shows one of the U.S. Navy's stealth ships tracking an unknown object in the sky. And after a few minutes,
Splash.
There's no question that the Pentagon has censored data to go along with the photos and videos, but none of that information has been leaked or otherwise released. That is, until today.
This moment blew my fucking mind. I had grown so used to UFO videos coming from VFX majors and random people. This was legit video of a UFO. They had held onto this for years, investigated it from the top down, and still couldn't take a guess as to what they were looking at. Gazing further into the rabbit hole that just formed before me, we've come to find out this video only got released to the public because people on the inside were fighting for it to be public. This stuff was hidden and was going to remain that way. A thought popped into my head at that very moment. What else is out there? What else are they hiding? How deep does this go? Who's responsible for this? I want answers. Hence, this video. I decided for this just to throw myself into the pit. Maybe I would find something interesting. When I tell you, this fucking rabbit hole is infinite. I fucking mean it's infinite. It just keeps going and going. There's so many things that tie to one another. Reoccurring faces, cover-ups, psyops, conflicts, mysteries. It has everything that would make a great story, and it needs to be told. This is why I believe aliens are real. All right, the most frustrating part about this rabbit hole is that we are only privy to a sliver of what is actually available. A question big thinkers like me would ask, why? We could go on and on about covert dealings and tradings of weapons and tech and blah, 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 but it's actually much more simple than that. Enter H.G. Wells. May have heard of him. He is the author behind War of the Worlds, written in 1895. Man, this book is fucking old. While not the first sci-fi thing written ever, it was the first of its kind to entertain the hypothetical of, you know, what if aliens came down to Earth and were not nice? Fuck you! It received positive accolades upon its completion, but it was still a relatively low-key book. The public really didn't talk about it much. That was until a man by the name of Orson Welles, not related to HG, read it himself and thought, you know, I run a radio show by the name of the Mercury Theater where we host radio dramas for entertainment. What if we, you know, run a news broadcast acting like the US was being invaded by Martians? What could possibly go wrong? People lost their fucking minds. Keep in mind that this event was in 1938, so smack dab in the middle of World War II. America wasn't as involved as it would be after Pearl Harbor in 1941, but people were still on edge. Just imagine as you're coming home with the mines and turn on the radio and the US is being invaded by fucking aliens from outer space. According to Radiolab, there were 12 million listeners. 1 of 12 believed it was true, and even some percent of that million ran out of their homes. Needless to say, the public's perception of the idea of alien invasion was not good. Do not approve. Do not pass go. The US government duly noted this. Thus, a precedent was set. Mass panic bad. Aliens make people crazy. There was also a dual effect with the War of the Worlds broadcast as well. People were a lot more keen on looking to the skies. At least a little bit. Between 1938 and 1947, there were dots of UFO sightings across America, but it never really picked up steam because people were more focused on, you know, this and that. This was up until 1947, well after the war, when a pilot by the name of Kenneth Arnold saw something and ended up kicking off the saucer era. Which, to be honest, in reality, a lot of people were just faking shit. I mean, just look at this photograph. Nah, but seriously, people were just throwing shit in the sky and taking pictures of it and calling it aliens. Y'all can't convince me this is anything but fine China. But what did Kenneth see? June 24th, 1947, Kenneth Arnold is on a casual cruise of his plane when he remembers hearing in the news of a crashed military plane in the area of Mount Rainier. There being a bounty of its discovery, he set off to look around. It was then he spotted a small fleet of flying objects. He at first described them as saucer-like, but then he amended that he meant they sort of flew as a saucer plate would if you threw it. He said they appeared to be almost 100 feet wide. They were shaped like ovals, all except one, in which he described it as a crescent shape. Kenneth maintained visual for a while until they flew off about 2,000 miles an hour off in the distance. Now, while he wasn't the first to report seeing a UFO, obviously, he was the first to be taken seriously. He was a respected pilot, very knowledgeable of aerial phenomenon, he wasn't attention-seeking, and others had reported seeing similar objects in the area moments later while Kenneth was still flying. He didn't even assert that what he saw was aliens. Matter of fact, at the time, he thought it was a covert USAF test flight. He simply just wanted to know what he saw. Like I said before, this case put UFOs on the map. Because of this, people also reported their own sightings as well. But again, it's not to say a lot of sightings have merit. Most sightings were explainable and debunked pretty soundly. We have to keep in mind the average layman probably wouldn't know what a weather balloon was or even what it looked like, as well as aerial phenomenon such as oddly shaped clouds. And again, Kenneth was no layman. He knew his shit. I do believe he saw what he saw, and hey, shut up, I'm not biased. He had zero reason to lie about this stuff. He stood nothing to gain. This was before claims of UFOs would earn a mic pointed at your face by local news stations. So in closing, oh no, I'm not even gonna say it's aliens because who can really know? I mean, shit, those weather balloons sure are known for moving 2,000 miles an hour. Remember what I said the most frustrating part of this whole rabbit hole was? Yeah, this is where this comes in. As I said, Kenneth's sightings led to an explosion of reports. Quite a lot of them were just bullshit, frankly, but some were genuinely unexplainable, as we will get into. In response to public inquiry, in 1948, the US Air Force decided to conduct a study of sorts looking into claims of these UFOs. Enter Project Sign, or its other name, Project Saucer. Yeah, real subtle there, guys. Project Sign was led by AF General Nathan Farragut Twining. I don't care if I'm pronouncing that wrong. And its goal was to, quote, collect, evaluate, and distribute within the government all information relating to UFO sightings on the premise that they might represent a national security concern, end quote. However, what ended up happening was they determined that actually it doesn't matter whether or not these objects were extraterrestrial or even if the claims were fucking true. They, and I shit you not, concluded that UFO claims actually are more of a threat than the UFOs themselves because the fears could be weaponized by a foreign power to stoke the masses into hysteria. Yeah. Let that sink in. The mere idea of this thing is more dangerous than the thing itself? That's supposed to make sense? Yeah, this would set a god-awful precedent for years to come. And like a drunk uncle coming to ruin a party, in comes Project Grudge. Grudge only lasted a year or so, and had a more explicit motive to flat out shoot down any suggestion of extraterrestrials and other flimsy explanations for the unexplained. With only a year of investigations focused entirely on shooting down specific possibilities rather than reaching an objective conclusion, this is what they signed off on. Quote, all evidence and analysis indicate that reports of unidentified flying objects are a result of 1. Misinterpretations of various conventional objects. 2. A mild form of mass hysteria and war nerves. 3. Individuals who fabricate such reports to perpetuate hoax to seek publicity. And 4. Psychopathological persons, end quote. This isn't saying most sightings are wrong. This is asserting all sightings are wrong. Just complete and utter hand-waving based on a fucking glance over what was actually given and not a day spent on actual investigations of these claims. This is why Project Grudge is so empty on reports, because they literally did nothing to prove these assertions. And that was just part 2 of their conclusions. I saved part 1 because get a load of this. Quote, there is no evidence that objects reported upon are the results of advanced scientific foreign development, and therefore they constitute no direct threat to national security. In view of this, it is recommended that the investigation and study of reports of unidentified flying objects be reduced in scope. Wow, what a supremely confident, almost snarky conclusion. Wouldn't it fucking suck if not 2 years later, 7 UFOs decided to fly over the White House for several days, leaving both the public, air traffic control, and AF pilots scrambled to intercept the objects, baffled?
I am here to discuss the so-called flying saucers. Our basic difficulty in dealing with these is that there is no measurement of them that makes it possible for us to put them in any pattern that would be profitable for a deliberate, custom sort of analysis to take the next step. We have, as of date, come to only one firm conclusion with respect to this remaining percentage, and that is that it does not contain any pattern of purpose or of consistency that we can relate with to any conceivable threat to the United States. We can say that the recent sightings are in no way connected with any secret development by any agency of the United States.
I would so love to deeply explain every single instance, but we really have to move on. Yeah, I'm really gonna blue ball you like that. It happened. Deal with it. Right, so if Kenneth Arnold's sighting was a slight tremor, this was a fucking 8 on the Richter scale. Attention was put on UFOs more so than it ever had, and to Grudge's dismay, this phenomenon was simply not gonna go away anytime soon. Now, we get to talk about the coolest dude to have ever existed in relation to this topic. Edward J. Ruppel. I worship the ground this dude walks on, inshallah. This man is a fucking saint. While everyone else in the Air Force who was put in charge of investigating UFOs failed to have a scientific and objective approach to the sightings, Ruppel put them to shame. Project Blue Book succeeded Project Grudge in 1952 and saw Ruppel leading the charge. Ruppel had an intuitive approach to claims. Rather than being lazy as fuck, he actually, get this, investigated claims. He and his teams looked into supporting evidence, corroborating eyewitnesses, and making sure to allow multiple possibilities, rather than blatantly slapping a weather balloon on it and calling it a day. Meaning, an unknown remained an unknown. Ruppel is also the one to coin the term UFO to remove the stigma that flying saucers came with. Funnily enough, the term gained stigma and is now replaced with UAPs, or unidentified aerial phenomena. Ruppelt was so adamant about getting the facts right that he actually fired people on the basis of being too much on either side of the argument, whether it be for or against extraterrestrials being the cause. Because again, some of these mysteries at the time genuinely had no clear answers to them, so trying to slap any definitive claim outside of unknown is just plain bias. Things were looking on the up and up until the Robertson panel.
Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck?
Like all good intentions, they go to die at the doorsteps of the CIA. To say I have zero respect for the CIA is an understatement. Since its inception, this three-letter agency has been involved in so many egregious ethical violations. From kidnapping random people and torturing them for the sake of science, to running a coup on a dictator just to put their own dictator in power, to allegedly being involved in just straight-up terrorist acts. Oh, I mean anti-terrorism. Okay, so anti-terrorism, terrorism, how quaint. These people have like the opposite of a Midas touch. Anyways, yeah, they were involved in the Robertson panel, which pretty much saw that the Grudge's sentiment on spreading literal lies to people and controlling the narrative as much as humanly possible was to be fulfilled. And with this panel's conclusion, Ruppelt stepped down and handed off Blue Book to these fucking scumbags. Blue Book wasn't entirely lost, as some of Ruppelt's subordinates stuck around and held firm in their view on how things should be approached, but by and large, Blue Book was torn from doing real work to basically becoming a disinfil campaign led by the CIA. For example, one of the heads of Blue Book, Captain Gregory, of course it's a fucking Greg, literally changed the classification system to make it so that possible natural explanations became the explanation for the event, with little evidence to support it. Quote, one way that Gregory reduced the numbers of unexplained UFOs was simple reclassification. Possible cases became probable, and probable cases were upgraded to certainties. By this logic, a possible comet became a probable comet, while a probable comet was flatly declared to have been a misidentified comet. Similarly, if a witness reported an observation of an unusual balloon-like object, Blue Book would usually classify it as a balloon, with no researcher for qualifications. Boom, it's a fucking psyop. I told you, I just proved it. This is literally why you insistent deniers are so allergic to the possibilities of extraterrestrial visitors. That's what they want you to think, and you fucking goggle it up without a second thought. How does it feel to be a fucking mind-controlled obedient lemming, huh? Does it feel great? I hope the rest of your life is fucking terrible. People like you make me sick. You are so... I can't read this one seriously. You are so willing and ready to have these three-letter agencies stick their hand right up your ass and puppet you as if the human centipede had a crossover with Sesame Street, you bitch. Blue Book eventually came to its end in the late 1990s, even drawing the same conclusion as Grudge did. Word for word, actually. Funny, it's like they just forgot 2 years later after drawing that conclusion, they got proven wrong. But even with the stupid reclassification system, there still existed some cases that were virtually unexplainable, and no natural phenomenon could even be ventured. Of the 12,000 sightings, 701 remained classified as unknown. One such case remained largely unheard of and forgotten until Blue Book's eventual declassifications, and it's quite something.
What the hell is this?
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
This case was brought to my attention through the far superior content creator Blame It on George, and it was actually what inspired me to make this one, so give him a view. If you're this far into the video, you'll definitely like his. I would give an in-depth explanation of this case, but writing this script is taking long enough, and I'm sure it's panned the video out well enough. Anywho, quick breakdown. This case is somewhat similar to the Kenneth Arnold one, in that Lonnie and Kenneth were both highly respected and knowledgeable people. Lonnie Zamora was on duty as an officer in the city of Socorro in 1964. He was in the middle of a chase with a local speeder on the back roads when he heard a loud swoosh nearby. Thinking it was a TNT shack exploding, he decided to drop the chase and go investigate the source. When he arrived, he peered over a small dirt hill when he saw at first what looked to be an overturned truck about 200 yards away, but on closer inspection, it appeared to be a round egg-shaped object that was being held up by stilts. Near the vehicle, he spotted two humanoid figures dressed in white suits. One of the figures stopped what they were doing and even looked at Zamora, taking pause themselves as if startled. Lonnie ducked behind a dirt hill and called for backup. As he was doing this, he heard the noise of what sounded like 4 car doors shutting and a loud roar. Peering back over, he saw that the object was taking off and had a bluish flame from the bottom. As the object got higher, the roaring noise became quieter until eventually there was no noise. The object then quickly darted off into the horizon. After backup arrived and reports were made, the USAF, more specifically those of Project Blue Book, became interested and sent out a team to investigate the scene themselves that same day. What was found at the scene was what makes this case much more exceptional than Kenneth Arnold's. There were 4 imprinted holes in the dirt, indicative of a large heavy object being present there. No tire tracks nearby. What's even more interesting is that the dirt in the center was shiny. Upon closer inspection, it had turned to glass, a process that necessitates a heat source up to 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. I shouldn't have to convert that to Celsius, I hope. Based on the evidence matching up with Lonnie's testimony and the fact that a scene like this would be exceptionally hard to fake, it seems to be, at the very least, Lonnie did see something. However, a solid conclusion could not be drawn as to what he saw, hence the unknown status. Interestingly enough, the same day, 2 gas station goers had witnessed a UFO. The employee behind the stand told them that it might be a helicopter, to which one of the witnesses stated, if it's a helicopter, it's one hell of a helicopter. So yeah, pretty weird, right? I'm gonna be honest, I kind of revised this section a little bit. Initially, I brushed past the lame excuses and explanations for this sighting, but I feel like dedicating at least a minute to the dumb shit people came up with, just to demonstrate how desperate these fucking feds were to confuse and deceive people. One possibility was posited by a British writer, Stuart Campbell, who said it was almost certainly a mirage created by the star Canopus. Stuart, how can it be a mirage of a star if it's in the middle of the day? The reason why we can't see stars in the sky in the day because the sunlight from our sun spreads across the atmosphere, basically outshining all other stars because it's right in our face. Also, I don't recall mirages being able to move up and off the fucking ground and fly off into the distance and leave glass behind from the heat created. Fuck off. Another garbage take comes from the Socorro Press. They allege what Lonnie saw was just a harmless prank by nearby New Mexico students. What the fuck are you talking about? Wait. You mean to tell me a bunch of dipshit college students knew Lonnie was giving chase to a random vehicle down this isolated road at this time of day and had the know-how to fake a fucking UFO landing, flew away and said fake UFO, and left markings in the sand turning it into glass? Who the fuck came up with this? Philip J. Klass, blah blah blah, American journalist, blah blah blah, UFO skeptic, has been called the Sherlock Holmes of UFOlogy? By who? His fucking mom? See what I mean? Before you hear any excuse to any UFO report, think about how much sense it makes. Like I said before, Blue Book's later years were tainted with a blatant misophone campaign. So that's it, is it? Nope. Let's jump 40 years and talk about the Pentagon footage. Now, while there are a fuckload of sightings in between 1964 and 2007, none of them were really that interesting and had a lot of plausible deniability, hence why I'm skipping over them. So some background for the footage, how it came to be released. It was actually initially leaked on the internet much earlier, as covered by Lemino, another person who inspired this video, although it was only one of the 3 that we would eventually get. The footage was leaked on a UFO conspiracy forum board called Above Top Secret in 2007. There were dozens of people claiming its inauthenticity, saying it was just another VFX major flexing their skills. I kind of want to take away from this topic briefly, just to mention how much of a plague this kind of shit was. I'm talking about the VFX majors trying to troll the shit out of the entire internet by creating fake UFO videos.
Oh my god, what is that? Jesus, oh my god, what the hell is that? You get...
Like, you really could not trust any UFO video that was being released by random people. Anyways, 4 different aircraft carriers, USS Nimitz, USS Theodore Roosevelt, USS Russell, and finally USS Omaha. Let's focus on one of the more interesting of the 4, the one that stood as a reminder to those embroiled in old military dealings that the concept of UFOs were far from a novel science fiction trope. Northern Pacific Ocean, 2004, the USS Nimitz sightings. What follows is not just a recollection of the events, yes plural, that surround the USS Nimitz, but a congressional testimony by a now retired Navy commander, David Fravor. Before the initial encounter, the nearby USS Princeton had reported seeing incoming unknown objects on the radar weeks prior. However, before any formal investigation could begin to be scrambled, the objects would dip out at high speeds. This was conveyed to Commander Fravor, and he was mindful of this up to the incident in question. During the month of November, the USS Nimitz had scheduled training flights alongside Princeton. Nimitz would send out pilots to train, while Princeton would direct them where to go and what to do. Fravor was in one of the F-18s when, not a few minutes after taking off, Princeton had suspended their training for, quote, real-world tasking. They were never told what they would see or what to expect. The instructions were simple: to arrive at the location and report any findings. Upon arrival of the location, Fravor had noticed a large bubbling being gathered in one area. They flew around to get a closer look when a large Tic Tac shaped object emerged from the depths. Quote, there were no rotors, no rotor wash, or any visible flight control surface like wings. End quote. It was roughly larger than an F-18. Before they could get any closer, quote, the object suddenly shifted its longitudinal axis, aligned it with my aircraft, and began to climb in a clockwise climbing turn, end quote. It quickly reached about 12,000 feet above sea level, so roughly 3,000 feet beneath where Fravor's F-18 were positioned. They pointed the fighter jet towards the object and were rapidly approaching when the object suddenly flew off in incredibly high speeds, disappearing off visual and radar. Baffled, they flew back to investigate the water where it had arisen from. As they were turning back, the objects appeared on Princeton's radar. According to the calculations, it had traveled 60 miles in less than a minute, so 3,600 miles an hour. To just put that into perspective, we have experimental vehicles that can reach speeds up to 1,200 miles per hour, but it takes 10 minutes to even reach that peak. This object broke the sound barrier nearly 5 times over in the span of a minute, making aerodynamics look like it was a mere suggestion rather than a hardened scientific principle. Even Fravor couldn't help but feel inferior seeing what this object could do. Quote, this Tic Tac object had just traveled 60 miles in a very short time, less than a minute, was far superior in performance to my brand new F-18, and did not operate with any known aerodynamic principle that we would expect for objects that fly in our atmosphere, end quote. They decided to drop the chase for now since their F-18s weren't equipped with recording equipment. When they landed, they sent out another jet, this time with the FLIR camera attached. The pilot beelined it to the object and recorded this video. Fravor's testimony did not stop there, as he pointed out after everything, nothing was done. They weren't even told to shut up. No neuralizer necessary. The video was simply taken, put into storage, and remained untouched for 5 years. Quote, what was shocking is that the incident was never investigated. None of my crew were ever questioned, tapes were never taken, and after a couple days, it just turned into a great story just to tell friends. Not until 2009 did Jay Stratton contact me to investigate what we observed. Unbeknownst to all of us, Jay was a part of ATIP, Anomalous Threat Identification Program, led by Louis Elizondo, out of the DoD. One piece of information I held off until now is what else the radar on the USS Princeton captured. Remember how USS Princeton was picking up these objects randomly weeks prior? Yeah, this is what they were doing. Quote, they had been descending from above 80,000 feet and coming rapidly down to 20,000 feet, would stay for hours, then go straight back up, end quote. You know how high 80,000 feet is? Fucking space. But it's totally not aliens, guys, I swear. This is literally why I get so fucking mad when people go, well, it can't be aliens because the Fermi paradox said meh, and the Drake equation died. Like, okay, it's not aliens. Fine. It's apparently so impossible that it's aliens. But it's not like the hypothesis of God, where we really can't know if he does or doesn't exist, and it's really just open for interpretation. Nah, we're fucking looking at this thing. It's a thing. It's undeniably a real thing. Now, I'd love to really dive into the other sightings on the Navy vessels. You know, matter of fact, here, boom, compilation. Absorb it into your face hole. Boobadoo-badoo. Okay, done. Dude, I am literally writing this at 7:49 p.m. on Halloween. I should be having gay sex right now instead of doing this shit. You're welcome, by the way. If only there was a way to show that you appreciate it. So case closed. That's it. If I were to drop the act for just a moment, honestly, there still exists room for some deniability. In good faith, these videos, data, and testimony just aren't the death nail that I'm hoping for. Maybe this thing is sponsored by the shadow government. Who fucking knows at this point? What we do know is that these objects are in our aerospace, they are anomalous, and the answers are right around the corner. David Grudge has been our generation's Kenneth Arnold. In case you're out of the loop, he's a former intelligence official and the frontrunner of the UFO disclosure movement, a push to declassify all documents relating to UAPs. And yes, that means everything. Meaning, if we are to believe Grudge, if the United States government has crashed UAPs with recovered alien bodies, then we will know about it. Very soon, actually. The UAP Disclosure Act of 2023 was passed in July of this year. Basically, here are the stipulations. The president is given 90 days to form an independent review board. Government agencies have 300 days to turn over any UAP records. The board has 180 days to review the records and 14 days to release findings. I just have a feeling, call it schizophrenia, whatever, but I just feel like behind those black bars lies something so incredible, and I cannot wait for these findings to finally be known to the public. I really want aliens to be real, not just because they're cool, not just because it would be a scientific discovery of the century, but because I really feel like knowing that we are not alone in this cosmic dust cloud would just ease so many minds. Maybe we would finally set aside our differences, drop the pitchfork and torches, and pick up our AR-15s and shoot those alien Obviously, I'm kidding. Listen, I played a lot of sport as a kid. If there's anything I learned from that, is that you don't fuck with the clearly superior species. But I really do think so many people would put aside a lot of these stupid judgments we have of one another. It would be a humbling experience, if anything. That's all I can really say about this topic. But if you remain unconvinced, I simply have one question to ask. If these aren't aliens, then what are we looking at? Wow, incredible. You made it to the end of the video. That's crazy. I hope it wasn't too schizophrenic. I try to contain myself in a couple places. Obviously, we're not perfect. But yeah, this was a passion project of mine. I've always been kind of interested in the subject, you know, but like I said in the video, like towards the beginning of my childhood and stuff like that, like I was like, oh, cryptids and shit, but like then I stopped believing in them, and that included aliens. But then this shit's started happening, and I ever since the videos dropped, since then I've been kind of like very hyperfixated all over again. Please help me. Doing deep dives like this was actually like really fun, and I wouldn't mind doing this again. I wouldn't mind doing like more videos like this if this video is successful. If it's successful, because this is a non-topical video, I'm kind of expecting like maybe like definitely less than 1,000 views. 500. I'm expecting something around 500. But if I get like somewhere around like 800, I'll try to make more. I'll definitely try to make more, you know. Here's hoping for 500 views at least. But yeah, if you do, and again, I know I feel like I've probably said it a bunch of times, especially towards the end, but if you do want to see more videos like this coming from me, you know, the best way to do it is liking and commenting and sharing. Yeah, I mean, I don't feel like I got really much else to say. I mean, this was more of like a, I do VR commentary, right? So, you know, there's gonna be more of this than there is gonna be of like the actual, you know, prepared videos and whatnot. But either way, if you like commentary and you like the way I present things, then go ahead and stick around, because there'll be more of that. See you guys later. Bye bye.